as media has become more complicated, as we've seen more fragmentation and shift to digital, shift to mobile media consumption, and our investment following that trend, the ROIs and effectiveness of media is more volatile from everything that we've seen, right? So to impact the growth of our business and our brands today is a bit more, at the very least, inconsistent, maybe even harder than it was in the past. So number one, measurement and the ability to identify success, failure, optimize, shift investment to what works is even more important. But that makes it even harder with much of our measurement capability being affected by privacy legislation. It's the shift has now gone back to, I think, a lot more of when we can do closed loop studies, we still do, right? And in several countries we do, but MMM studies and 360 models that try and cobble together as many streams of data as we can to overlay and understand, and using AI, a predictive nature of the results that we're seeing. And that is more and more of what we need to move towards. So the need and the importance of measurement, optimization, and attribution is even more important today than it was in the past, and potentially harder. But we've shifted to modeling to do what we may have outsourced or used cookie data for in the past to fill the gap, and that's what we're building capability around now.
Ron, could you explain just a little bit more about AI and what that looks like, the tools you're using? I mean, not to get too deep in the weeds, but what is the utility of AI in understanding outcomes?
Yeah, so many of the platforms we use have AI built into them already. And this is whether it's large digital platforms, social media platforms, and the buys that you do can have some AI capabilities built into it. But internally, what that means for us, it means many things from a marketing perspective and a media perspective, whether it's creative optimization, whether it's media optimization, whether it's predictive modeling of investment, whether it's understanding the implications of broad shifts in consumer consumption caused by things like COVID. All of those things now we're trying to apply AI to try and optimize and predict how best to move forward, when to invest, when not to, when do you save your powder and move on, and where are the best places to invest to drive growth and connect to our consumers. So that's what we're finding is there's not one model, right? So you're laying models on top of models to try and find the best course forward, and that seems to be what's making it even more interesting and complicated is that you have a host of different models. So you used to hear about things about weather prediction and things like that. Now we're applying that same science to marketing.
All right, so speaking about investment, tell us, how things have changed. There's so many opportunities around investment. We hear a lot about CTV. Out of home is becoming hot again. How do you evaluate, and what's exciting to you in terms of media investment? Looking ahead.
Yeah, so for us, we still have a very consumer-driven model for our media investment. Where are we going to find our consumers? What is their behaviors? So that's point number one. The second is the brand and our communication and the content that our agencies are developing and where they think they can make it resonate, right? So there's this give and take between media and the creative. And the last piece that I think is a big shift for us is addressability, the ability to customize our communication to make it more effective, more personal, resonate better, and disproportionately gain attention, where in the past we would not maybe get the consumer to dive into our content. We find a way to do that today. That's really, I think, where the creative pivot is leading towards potentially investment decisions that are trying to move us forward into a new area. Now, we talk about out of home, and this is not just, digital media or social media, but we're trying to apply that even to places like out of home, where we can be more geo-targeted, where we can serve different content, and potentially, when if we can iterate at speed, pick up signals and then optimize and learn and improve, then what you're doing then is more likely to say, you know what, out of home is working for us. So if you can optimize quickly, and digital out of home placement allows you to do that, then you'll start to see us using it more, right? So that's really what we're trying to find is ways to improve faster and get signals that allow us to invest in the right places. So the more media that allows for that flexibility and that speed, I think that's where you're starting to see money shift to that.
Ron, you referenced addressable media, and you and I have spoken about this several times over the years. What is addressable media? And let's just call it addressable TV for this conversation. What does that mean, and what's the promise, and where do you hope it goes?
Yeah, addressable is it means lots of many different things. It can be broad personalization. That means how do you speak about categories and products that that trigger memories or trigger interest. It could also be creating that rabbit hole that interests the consumer and makes them dive in deeper into content and get education and interest and do even research about products. In this case, maybe for us, it's pet nutrition products and pet food products. Those are the types of things that addressable means for, and it can mean different things for chocolate than it does for pet food than for dinner recipes. But it is that level of personalization that unlocks interest, and that's what we mean about addressable. For M&Ms, it's going to be different on television than it is than it is for Iams or a pet brand, because the amount of education, interest, and and content that we have that sits behind it to get people closer to the brand is going to be different. So addressable TV is just it depends on the category, it depends on the product, and the amount of personalization, customization, and content that you want to bring forward to the consumer and get them to dive in, right? So that's the for us, addressable is a pretty broad category of different content and for different media types.